again, these are bold claims, right? And there will be people watching this say, well, you could say all that, and that could be a big stack of blank paper. You know, I can vouch for the fact that I've looked through them all. These are not blank. This is all unbelievable evidence of this stuff. But talk about what you've uncovered in terms of Freedom of Information Act requests, because you can piece this stuff together pretty accurately from what you've uncovered.
Yeah, well, through FOIA, people did a FOIA request on Isakson and Parker Petit and MiMedx and didn't get much. What they did get was that Isakson was constantly asking for who was putting in a request of FOIAs on Pete and MiMedx. But then someone FOIA'd me, my name with Parker and MiMedx and things like that, and FBI, and they got a whole stack of documents that Isakson's push to the FBI began a day or so after the grants conference and before I made any so-called tweets. And he was nonstop into the FBI about this. Now, it's heavily redacted, and my lawyer has gone back and we've made a FOIA appeal. We've written a very strong letter to the Senate Ethics Committee about Isakson, and my lawyer, Shapiro, sent Isakson a personal letter basically saying, we demand and we're looking into suing you, and we have grounds to sue you for violating my civil rights. So we need you to turn over all information, letters, etc., with Pete Petit, Marc Cohodes, MiMedx, etc. So if you're a 80-year-old senator from Georgia, who, by the way, has Parkinson's disease, which I wouldn't wish on anybody, and Senator, hopefully you're watching this at some point, my message to you is simply, Parker Petit is not worth ruining your career or your legacy over. You made a huge mistake in ginning up the FBI on me. If you apologize to me and my wife and my son and make it right, whatever right is, because I still suffer from this, and turn over all information that you have on Pete, I'll let it go. I'll look the other way. He's not worth you ruining what you have left of your career and your reputation for. But if you want to keep covering up for him and public safety and what you're doing to the veterans, forcing this shit medicine on them, God knows where it ends, because you've made a mistake. Don't compound the mistake for covering for this guy, because you say, how is this allowed to go on? Well, did he quash Pete's SEC investigation back for insider trading years ago? Or Matria? Or other things Pete's done? Or the FDA? Or the VA? Pete freely admits that he goes to Isakson all the time for these issues. And in the FDA letter, Pete employs and implores Isakson, who's looked out for him. And it's in the letter. And why is Isakson messing around with the FDA? It's in a letter dated February 26, 2016 to Robert Califf, MD, Commissioner of the US FDA. And Pete's basically bitching and pissing and moaning to the FDA for giving him a hard time and saying he has great safety records, but somewhere in here he employs a senator. And this part to me is quite troubling because I think it's out of his jurisdiction. He says, our request for review is rather lengthy, but this ordeal has been lengthy. Some of the issues that developed during this 2.5-year period since the issuance of the non-untitled letter required us to seek congressional advice. I know that you've had conversations in the HELP Committee confirmation hearings with Senator Isakson and Alexander relative to the use of the untitled letters and the attempt to change regulations using guidance developments. I'm afraid that MiMedx has become the poster child for adverse consequences related to the agency's use of those types of documents relative to human tissue, specifically amniotic membrane allografts. Well, if Isakson's involved with the FDA with MiMedx, he's involved with the FBI with me, he's involved with the VA in using these bogus products, he's involved in the VA for paying for these bogus products, I think the world needs to hear from Isakson. It's time that Isakson come clean on what he's done. Because I said before, Grant, this bullshit has to stop, right? I have great respect for the rules and laws of the country, right? I pay my taxes. I've never been charged with a crime, committed a crime. I'm just a guy who speaks his mind. Granted, people don't like what I say all the time because it shines a light on evildoers. But this senator needs to be called out, and this shit has to stop. Because if it doesn't stop, where does it stop? Right? Where does it stop? And the Journal wrote a piece with the FOIA information calling out Isakson. Atlanta Journal-Constitution's written about it. And if people think this issue just dies because Isakson won't say anything, that's a bad bet. Yeah. Because I'm not stopping. And if Isakson is coercing the FDA to look the other way, something's very wrong, and people will be held responsible. So I hope the FDA watches this. You haven't responded to any of my letters that I've written to you, where I've documented exactly what's going on. You guys can use these as an exhibit. Here's the May 25th letter, and it goes into great detail of exactly what's wrong and why it's wrong. And I don't, or my lawyer doesn't even as much get a wink back with this. But just because I'm ignored doesn't mean I stop. I won't stop. And you've seen my body of evidence, and I'm getting more information by the day in on MiMedx and this poison they sell, not less. So the company has lied about adverse events. The company has lied about covering up 483s. They haven't fixed the 483s. They're illegally marketing the product, saying that it does things that there's no proof that it does. And the FDA just sits there. They just sit there.
What's immensely troubling to me, amongst many troubling aspects of this whole thing, is the fact that you have just about every government agency in the country. You've got the SEC, you've got the DOJ, you've got the FDA.
The VA. The DOD.
You've documented so clearly here, and I've seen it all. You've shown me all this evidence. I've gone through it. The fact that nothing's been done about this is extraordinary to me, because this isn't. Let's take short sellers and all that nonsense out of the way. This is public health. This is public safety, and that's the thing that I can't get my head around in terms of either how high up this must go, or how broad it must be for everybody to do nothing.
Well, see, that's the crazy part of this whole thing, right? In all my correspondence with everybody, so no one claims that I'm not a full disclosure guy, I say, I am a short seller.
Yep.
I am short the stock.
But do you think they read that and go, oh, he's one of those guys, ignore it?
Possibly, hopefully not. But there have been books written about me, and there have been Harvard business cases written about me. So if you Google my name, there's plenty of things that I've done that just aren't trollable events, right? There's plenty of things I've done. In Gretchen's book, Reckless Endangerment, when I exposed Novastar, and the government did nothing. I said, I think on the last page, that if something like this comes out again, the lesson I learned from it is speak louder.
Yeah.
And speak stronger, right? And if I'm gonna cock it, I'm gonna throw it, right? There's no fake with me. And I've cocked it, and I'm throwing it on MiMedx. And if Gottlieb or Mary Malarkey, the SEC, DOJ, DOD. If they all want to ignore me at your own risk and your own peril, because you will be held responsible for this, not by me, but by the public and by your peers. Because what I've said about this is very clear. It's on petitparkerthebarker.com. We've done episodes. I've spoken about it. I've done periscopes. I've written letters. I've dropped over a couple $100,000 just on lawyers, and I haven't even been sued. This is just money that I'm not asking anyone back for me. I've been hassled by the federal government. I've been told to shut up. I mean, if people think that Aaron Brockovich was a story, that's like watching Dumbo the Lion compared to some of the stuff that I've been through with this thing. The person who deserves a lot of credit, who I reached out to and they actually acted, is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas.
Just about to bring that up.
Right? Yep. So not everyone has been sleeping at the switch. The guy who runs Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, Dr. Dan, is a fine American and human being. And he took my stuff seriously, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas stopped reimbursing for this bullshit amnio fixing.
Tell us that story. Let's understand how, if someone takes you seriously, what does that conversation look like?
He either saw me on Twitter, or I direct messaged him, or emailed him. I mean, Blue Cross and Blue Shield is some shit-ass bureaucracy, because I reached out to someone who knew them, and I said, how do I get a hold of Dr. Dan? They said, here's his email, which is probably filtered. I said, but what if I want to call him? They said, here's the number. And the number gets you in the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas phone tree. And I think I have a better chance of winning the lottery than getting a hold of someone specifically in the Texas. I literally spent an hour and 40 minutes trying to get a hold of him by phone. So I then Twitter direct messaged him. I then messaged someone who knew him. I then emailed someone who knew him. And eventually we talked. And it was a listen-only conversation. And it was essentially, I'm calling as a citizen about MiMedx. Your company is getting grossly ripped off by these clowns, and here's why. Just so you know, I'm short MiMedx stock. So I don't want you to think, right, that if the company goes away, I don't financially benefit, but that's not the reason for my call.
Right.
And he heard me out. He saw my evidence. I sent him some MiMedx documents that I have, how MiMedx insurance people, I think a lady named Cyteria, puts in emails how to trick fuck the system, how to trick fuck the coding, how to rip off Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. And this, when it's said and done, I will have saved that system probably tens of millions of dollars if this was allowed to go on. And it keeps going on and going on and going on. But any healthcare company, right, that wants to run a straight ship should hire Dr. Dan to run the company, because he's a God-fearing, honest guy who knows right from wrong. So he did act. He did say, we're no longer covering this crap. And I suggested to him that they audit all of their MiMedx payments, right, and try to claw back from these doctors. Because what would go on is you'd come in for whatever ailment, and you and Aurora own the distribution company, and MiMedx makes an end of the quarter deal with you for AmnioFix injectable. They say GNA, Grant and Aurora, a vial of AmnioFix injectable is normally $5,000 a vial. It's $10,000 for the super big vial. If you pay us cash, we'll sell you $100,000 worth of product for $45,000. And for this amount of product, you can probably bill $600,000, $800,000 of stuff.
To the insurance company.
Sure. Knee injections, scalp injections, and here's how you code it. You code it breakthrough, blah, 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 for this, that, or the other. And if you submit it for $20,000, they'll probably only pay you 50%, right? But if they only pay you 50%, you tell the customer, right, insurance only. Whatever we get back from the insurance company, you don't have to pay anything more. So why wouldn't you do this procedure? If Aurora needs some procedure done and the doc says, hey, if you take this injection for your knee, insurance covers it, right? Aurora never sees the bill. It goes right to the insurance company. It goes right to the insurance company for $18,900. Some for anesthesia, some for wound care dressing, some for an x-ray, amnio-fix injectable, site management, this, that, and the other. Aurora doesn't see the bill where I say, what the fuck is this? Are you crazy? No, it goes right to insurance. Insurance pays the doctor. I never see a bill. Everyone wins. MiMedx wins. Guy who sells the shit wins. The doc wins. And Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas loses. And what does Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas do? They raise people's rates because they lose. And then everyone complains about health care. Now again, I don't want to portray myself as a saint. And I don't want to portray myself as a Mr. Fix-It. I'm a rifleman on MiMedx, and they are trick fucking the system huge. Are others doing it? Probably, right? But my focus is on that low-life motherfucker, Parker Petit, and what he's done to me, my family, and others by trying to silence him, right? Which needs to stop. And if he's made an example of, and Isakson's made an example of, and Tom Price has made an example of how they screw the system, screw employees and others, then my job's done. Then I will have accomplished what I want to accomplish. Right? I'm not a politician. I don't want to, I'm not into any of that stuff. I don't talk about stock market. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion. But this is an example. This is just one example with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas of one guy doing something right. The SEC, DOJ, FDA, VA, DOD, they've all dropped the ball. Now, hopefully when the government gets back to work, things happen and we can have the Parker Petit prison party when he gets arrested, which I think will happen. But it's a battle, and as you said, why haven't people done it? I don't know, but I can't allow that to frustrate me to the point of inaction. I have to keep the train rolling, right? I mean, if the SEC does its thing, I can't tell the SEC what to do. They don't call me and say, what should we do? It's thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. They don't ignore me, but no one's asking, no one's giving me the heads up of what they're about to do.
But it seems, to me, it seems so straightforward here. When you get presented with all this evidence, at the very least, you say, right, everybody, stop. Stop what you're doing. Stop selling that. Stop doing this, stop doing that. We're going to look into this, and we're going to subpoena all the parties, and we're going to do... It seems very straightforward to me, which is why I'm astounded at how hard you've had to fight, right? When you have so much on this stuff.
Yeah.
How, as I said before, how high up this must go, how broad it must be. I mean, when you think about fraudulent companies and you think about Madoff, right? Great example, Madoff. Yes, it was financial, so that you didn't have the kind of complex web of people interested. It was one guy and a guy in a back room cooking the books, okay? But I remember what Harry Markopoulos had to go through to get that looked at. And of course, when finally somebody did, it's, holy shit. This to me, I'm astonished.
But with him, they portrayed him as a kook.
Yeah, no, sure.
Right? They portrayed Harry as a kook.
Yeah.
They portrayed Madoff as this great guy. He was the chairman of NAMSAC, establishment guy, and this fucking kook just kept harping and harping, harping. It's the shoot the messenger and ignore the message. And being a short seller or short the stock casts you through the public perception as an identity that's just not the case.
But why wouldn't you at this point just say, right, okay, I'm going to very publicly and very noisily cover my short. And then I'm going to go back to all these guys and say, listen, I'm out of this. I have no dog in the hunt except trying to do what's right.
I could theoretically do that. I'm just not in the mood right now to pay taxes on my gains.
Right, okay.
Okay, so hopefully I don't have portfolio losses this year, but I'm not in the mood of paying on short-term gains on my MiMedx when I still think it has plenty to go.
Right.
Have I covered some? Yeah, sure, I've covered some. I've covered plenty. I'm not short that much, but that doesn't matter. But the fight that I have and what people don't acknowledge to this day, I mean, you do, and some informed people do, is I've been right.
Yeah.
Right? I've been right. And everything that I predicted would happen, predicted. So I think on terms of my MiMedx, I'm pretty good. And for people to still ignore me, given what we've turned up with the FBI and Isakson, is really troubling. I mean, what Gretchen and Charlie at the Journal and what the AJC guy turned up on Isakson, I'm amazed that people, right, the mainstream media and the free speakers haven't really picked up on it and said, this is like a big issue. And to sort of segue a little bit, although it's not my bailiwick, at the same time, just about, you had Elon Musk go on 60 Minutes, look straight ahead into the camera like I'm doing now and say, just so you know, the SEC, I have no respect for you. I have no respect. I want that known, right? So we're in an environment where a CEO guilty of security fraud, which he is clearly of, goes to the enforcers on network television, looks straight into the camera and says, I have no respect for you guys, right? I have no respect. You guys are the equivalent of a kangaroo court. We're in that role. We're in that world right now where people openly say they have zero respect for the rule of law, which is why I've said and will continue to say the only job I will ever take, ever, is running the SEC. And I would do a damn great job. And it wouldn't take me that long to clean up half the nonsense that's out there. So the Parker Petites and the Elon Musks and guys like that would play by the same rules that most law-abiding citizens play by. That's the problem. I'm all for light regulation, but the regulations that are out there, you need to fucking enforce. And I'm not accusing Christopher Wray of being involved in anything, but Christopher Wray was a big-time partner at King & Spalding, who is doing MiMedx's investigation, and Chris Wray was a huge donor to Johnny Isakson on Johnny Isakson's re-election campaign. So the head of the FBI, Chris Wray, and Johnny Isakson clearly know each other. So the question is Johnny Isakson, Chris Wray, Parker Petit, Tom Price, what's the connection with those four? So you ask, why is this allowed to go on? And you say there's a lot of tentacles and waves. Yeah, there's a lot of waves. And if it was real simple, Isakson and the parties that be should make it right to me. They should make it right. They should make it right and turn over to everyone what's really going on here. Because when they don't, it sure looks, smells, acts, and really is a huge cover-up. But now is putting public health and public safety at risk.
But you know, if we're in that environment where people can look down the lens of a camera and say, I have zero respect for you, and that's it, over. You make the SEC a laughingstock, which they've become. You know, in the financial community, the community they're supposed to be the guard dog, the guy with the big stick, they're a laughingstock. And they have been for a number of years, but it just gets worse because of the inaction, the lack of enforcement, and allowing this stuff to go on. What keeps you going? Because this shouldn't have to be you doing this. It shouldn't have to be you. Sitting here in the farm, putting your wife and your family at risk, it shouldn't have to be you. So what keeps you going in this world that you observe where there's no accountability, there's no enforcement, there's no nothing?
There's good news and bad news. The good news is we're in the 8th inning of MiMedx, and I'm still pitching in the ball game. And I think I'm up about 9 or 10 to 1. And we still have an inning to go, which will bring this thing to a close. The bad news is I'm really, really, really good at this. I really am.
Yeah.
And I love doing it. But as I said on the Periscope, and I'll say to you, and I said to you before, this is my last rodeo, right? It really is. And that's sad. It's sad for society, sad for me, because I love doing it, but I can't do this anymore because I have no ground cover. I'm one guy, and I have made people an inordinate sum of money on MiMedx. I've been doing this since 1982 professionally, and I've probably exposed 50 to 70 frauds, put many people in jail, huge fines for the government, a lot of people banned from the business. And I'm 58, had people die all around me. I can't with no ground cover do this anymore, because they will get me, right? They will get me. So if this is my last rodeo, which it is, it's a hell of a fucking rodeo. I mean, I've shown everyone who'll watch what one person by himself can do. And I'm not done, right? But we're closer to the end of the game than the beginning of the game. But it's fuck with my mind. I'm not the same. I'm more paranoid. I'm more jittery. I'm not right in the head because I don't know if my phones are tapped. I don't know if my emails are hacked. I don't really care because there's nothing, I don't do anything wrong. But it's not a comfortable feeling to know that a bent senator can weaponize the FBI against a private citizen for tweeting against a stock fraud and his constituent who's a criminal, right? A criminal. And that's a sad day for society. It's a sad day for markets. It's a sad day for me. I mean, I'll still do, I can teach this stuff. I can lecture this stuff. I got plenty of opportunities to do things, but I love doing this, right? I mean, I can totally understand how those football coaches who've won Super Bowls want to keep coaching. I mean, the lows are low, but the highs are high, and it just doesn't go away. And again, I'll still short stocks, and I'll still help some people out. But this kind of thing, I mean, this is it for me. I mean, this is it for me, and I can write a book. People want to do a movie. There's all sorts of stuff to do, but I just have to kind of change the mental part of this. I have to get my mind right. I have to, just get out of this mode, and I have to see closure in this, whatever closure looks like. But, Soros couldn't write his final chapter the way he wanted. Steinhardt couldn't. Julian Robertson couldn't. All these guys went out, not the way they want to. And, the key for me was I was never going to let that fucking Goldman experience ever define me, ever, right? People define me however they want, but in my mind of minds, I needed to prove to myself, most importantly, that was just a fucking joke, which it really was. So
when this is over, and God willing, we are near the end of this thing.
Yeah.
And you get your closure, and the prison party takes place, and you're out.
Collective Souls playing at the prison party, that's for sure. And it's going to be in Atlanta. There's going to be a lot of security there, I'll tell you that.
Right.
Isaacson's, well, maybe Isaacson will be in a cage by then, but who knows? But
Well, we'll see. But what then? You're out this business. Were you and Aurora and Max? What are you looking forward to do?
Max is doing as good as he's ever done. Aurora does her horse thing, so she's good with that. I got a zillion things I can do. I don't exactly know. I may write a story. I may teach this stuff. I may try to help Overstock clean up security lending, which I think is a huge market. There's a zillion things I can do, but I'll have to detox from this and get my excitement and spend my time a little elsewhere. Maybe I'll help you guys interview some people or weed out some evildoers, and fuck, for all I know, the new president will have me run the SEC.
You know what, that would be,
I mean, I think
that'd be a great day.
I think that the chance of me ever running the SEC is 0.000003, but I think there is a chance if someone ever wants to clean things up, because I could clean things up quick. And I could fix what's wrong in a hurry, and bring some troublemakers. If people learned they couldn't get away with this crap anymore, behavior would change. But
well, you know what? Look, I came here a little over a year ago to talk about short selling, and you've taken me on this journey with you over this last year, for which I'm eternally grateful. I wouldn't have had your intestinal fortitude to go through what you've gone through. You, Aurora, and Max have been just remarkable. And however long it takes for this to play out, I hope you get your closure, and I hope that justice gets done. And when it's over, I wish you guys peace, because God knows you've earned it.
By and large, the people who do this, who expose trouble, whether it's prescription drugs, subprime lending, subprime education, timeshares, false claims. I mean, it's the short seller's role to expose some of this stuff, and they need ground cover. So part of it is you can't be bullied, but at the same time, you can't put bullshit out there designed to move a stock around to cover and make a fast buck and move on. So I think there's a balance that needs to get balanced. Short sellers need some ground cover, but some of the rules of engagement need to change. And then maybe people will be thought of better. A lot of guys said, why don't you just take your victory lap on MiMedx? I said, there's no victory lap to take.
Well, everywhere I've gone in the last year, people have talked to me about this interview. They've talked to me about you, and so for them, all the people that have talked to me, that haven't had the good fortune I've had to sit here and have the chance to talk to you, to sit and eat with you and meet Aurora, Max. On behalf of them, thank you. Not just for what you've done, but for taking the time to do this, because hey, it's
well, the good that can really come from this is if Gottlieb of the FDA sees this, maybe he says, "What the fuck's going on with this AmnioFix injectable? This Cohodes character's making us look."
I'll send him a copy of it. And make
right,
sure
he's making us look like assholes, and maybe the Senate Ethics Committee moves on Isakson, and maybe the DOJ finally arrests Parker Petit, and maybe the SEC just halts trading in MiMedx forever, and guys do get charged, and money does go back, and they stop selling this crap. Then I can say sort of mission accomplished, and it'll make a great book with exhibits. But I think, as you guys see, my work is very comprehensive. It is end to end. I'm very proud of what I've done. Very proud of what others have done. I'm not the end all be all on this name or this story, but that FBI visit was special. I mean, that was special, and how those two agents and the people who orchestrated this are still employed and not washing dogs is beyond me. But it's truly been something. It's truly been something.
Well, thanks for sharing the story with us. And you know what? I'll see you at the prison party because I'm definitely coming.
Billy Buckingham told me not to give up, so he'd be proud of me wherever he is right now, that's for sure.
Marc, Aurora, and Max Cohodes are a remarkable family who've been through the mill over the last 12 months. And while their ordeal is not yet over, that day seems close at hand. The amount of work Marc has done is prodigious, and the body of evidence he's built up is breathtaking. And while his claims may seem outlandish, the lack of any response to them from regulators is shameful. Ultimately, one can only hope that the truth will out, and at that point, it seems to me as though there will be many high-profile casualties of the MiMedx saga. I suspect that, like Harry Markopolos before him, Marc Cohodes will eventually be lauded as a hero for his unflinching work in exposing a major fraud. However, we have to ask ourselves some tough questions. Why is the world of finance so unwilling to hear bad news? Why are short sellers held to a higher burden of proof? And why is it that men like Marc are forced to endure so much in order to be heard? Few would have the intestinal fortitude to push on through the skepticism and abuse as he and his family have, but instead of thanking them, we demonize them. As I left Alder Lane Farm once again, with Marc's words seared in my brain, I couldn't help but hope that maybe, just maybe, the story of his fight to expose MiMedx might mark a turning point in the market's perception of short sellers. We should all be so lucky.